Okay, so Colin, thank you for being here today.
No, thanks for having me. It's good to be back here in the new year.
So, could you first, introduce yourself and yeah, tell us a little bit about your career?
Sure. So I'm Colin Padget. I'm the CEO of Founders Metals. Well, my career, I guess I started on the business side of things. Did a degree in business and then a little bit of work in banking, but then quickly became a geologist, and that's really what I would have called myself going into this role or this current role as CEO of Founders. I am right now. Founders has the Antino Gold Project in southeastern Suriname, so we're in the Guyana Shield in that very exciting part of northern South America, and we've been having a lot of success for the last 2 or 3 years here, and we're looking forward to what's going to be a pretty exciting 2026 with a much larger and recently grown land package for exploration.
Perfect. We'll talk about that in a few minutes. But how many shares do you hold of Founders, and how important is it to your net worth?
Yeah, it's the vast majority of my net worth. The is a very important total control and with options and RSUs and share ownership comes to right around 2 million shares.
I think the first thing would be if you could summarize 2025 for Founders Medals.
Sure. Yeah. So 2025, well, actually was a pretty big year for us. I'd say some of the biggest, most noteworthy items. We had some new discoveries. Maria Giralda, we had 22 meters, 12 grams per ton in on our third drill hole on that target. Parbo as well was a new target that we hit with 70 meters of over a gram, and some exciting brand new things. Out from that, we did quite a lot of expansion of the upper Antino area, which is our most advanced or most developed area. That grew by about 40% over the course of 2025, which was really great to see. And then big ticket items were consolidating land package. We added 37,000 hectares or 370 square kilometers to our 20,000 hectare land package. So grew by almost double, or 200%, and that made a big difference in terms of the prospectivity. And acquiring that ground gave us a whole lot of data from the historic work that had been done there to really kickstart this year. And now we're and then I guess the last one to finish off 2025 before we start talking about next year or this year. Our big one as well was adding Goldfields as a strategic investor. So Goldfields came into the story for a little, right around 10.5% investment, right around $50 million Canadian as a single check. So that was really exciting for us, and we're looking forward to the collaboration on the technical side with their team over the course of this year.
So let's start there. They invested 50 million. They have no assets in the Guyana Shield. Why did they make the investment, and what's their strategic angle with it?
Yeah, I mean, I think for them, you're right. First asset for them in the Guyana Shield. They're not alone in their thinking that there's a lot of opportunity for some really big future mine discovery in this jurisdiction. I think some of the things that attracted them to the Antino Project and to Founders was, I think, the level of technical I think knowledge and capability that we had on the project. I think we're quite a bit further along in that respect than most juniors would be, and the Goldfields team that we interact with has been very technical focused, which is really what we've been keen on. I think the other thing that they see is the land package consolidation really does represent an opportunity for that kind of generational mine life type scenario. And if you're coming into a new jurisdiction, new area, it's great to have the know that there's some gold in the ground, which is the case with Upper Antino, Lower Antino, and a few of the other targets that we have. But to also have that opportunity for potentially decades of exploration and ongoing growth.
Perfect. So who are the large shareholders right now?
Largest shareholders, well, one of the new largest shareholders is Goldfields, and then we have B2 Gold as well as a strategic investor on the roster. They came into the story in the fall of 2024. After that, on the institution side, be BlackRock out of the UK, their mining team, and then 1832 or Dynamic Funds out of Toronto. And then after that, Franklin Templeton, and many others.
And what's the cash position?
We've got right around $55 million in cash right now.
How much are you looking to, at a minimum, drill this year? And how much do you expect to spend on that? Or
yeah, so we target right around, it's kind of 2.5 to 3 million Canadian a month for a burn rate on exploration, kind of G&A, everything combined. So that puts us with the current production rates that we saw kind of closing out 2025 and now here in the first month of 26. I mean, that gives us the capacity with our drill rigs to easily drill up to the 70,000 meters that we've kind of stated as a target number for this year. We could drill considerably more if we were to bring all of our drills online. We have both the cash to do that and the capacity to do that from owning the rigs standpoint. But it's about, the goal is not to drill as many meters as possible. The goal is to drill as many good meters as possible. So right now we kind of leave it at that up to 70,000 and give ourselves some room to expand that depending on exploration success.
by the way, how many rigs do you have now?
So we own 6 diamond drill rigs. So we have 6 on site. One is specially set up right now for being easily transportable or man portable. All the same style of rig, but we've just modified it to make it so we can move it a little bit more easily to some of the further afield targets that we want to hit this year. And then the rest are pretty standard diamond drill rigs.
Perfect. We'll in a minute move into the drill program, but first of all, you own 70% of the Antino project, at least 20,000 hectares that you have. That what do you have to do to get up to 75%?
So for 75%, I mean, at this stage, at this point, it would only be completing a feasibility study. We've already completed the spend, the dollar amount on the work commitment side to complete that 75% piece. At this point, I mean, we're remain in active conversation or discussion with the 30% owners to look at consolidating or bringing that whole piece, the whole package together under the founders umbrella. And that's really, I think, the best case scenario for everybody.
Yeah, what could a deal look like if you do a deal with Nano?
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, anything that we're going to do is going to be something that's accretive to founders and founder shareholders. And I mean, Nano themselves are already shareholders of the company, through the first 2 stages of the option agreement. And beyond that, they have an interest in staying engaged and connected to the property and the project. And, they've been, very supportive partners in Suriname, from day one and certainly contributed to how quickly we were able to ramp things up in the early days. So their interest very much seems to be staying involved from an equity standpoint, which, is what we're very much interested in as well. So I think it would be some combination of cash and shares, but largely focused on them staying involved in the property and the project through an equity
You think
stake.
there would be a royalty?
Potentially, but my philosophy on royalties is absolutely as minimal royalty or no royalty if possible. So, that's something I'm pretty firm about and want to, hang on to that for the optionality that provides either down the road or, if the dream is if you can avoid a royalty long term, then all the better.
So you have expanded your land program in a few acquisitions. One big one was announced just last month. So could you explain the rationale? First of all, could you give some sense what you have paid or what you are paying, the rationale for it, and give some color on what is known geologically on the land package? Because 1,000 square kilometers now, that's very vast.
Yes. So it's been kind of an internal goal for a while to consolidate what is really this entire part of the greenstone belt. And so when we look at this area, so the original land package, I don't know if you can see my mouse here, but this is the original 20,000 hectares right here. And so, on that and with the exploration work that we've done on that part of the property, we've very, I'd say, very clearly demonstrated that there's an enormous gold system here, and one that's capable of generating over many kilometers apart, 100 plus gram meter product type intervals. We had 22 meters of 12 here at Maria Giralda. There's 72 meters of 2 at Boise, a similar interval at Van Gogh, and then on top of that, where we've seen kind of 70-ish% of our drilling to date, and upwards of 30, 100 plus gram meter intervals. There's the Upper Antino deposit. So we've demonstrated that, in these kind of second and third order structures off of this major, lineament, the Central Guyana Shear Zone, that there's a lot of gold in the ground. But we're not the first ones there. Artisanal mining or small scale mining, even kind of first gold was discovered in the area in the late 1800s. And so it's a well-established region for gold mining and gold exploration. And so it's all of that, including historic work in the north here with a 5+ kilometer auger trend, some new very high grade grab sample numbers that we've gotten out of multiple shear zones here in the northernmost part of the concession we acquired last fall. And then all of the alluvial mining evidence really points to this being a system that extends throughout this entire belt. And so, we've come into a fair bit of historic data. The vast majority of any drilling work was on Antino. So it's pretty early or greenfields type ground, but it presents an opportunity to find, it's kind of, we go back to, it's not only how big is Upper Antino, but it's really how many Upper Antinos are there. And I think when you look at the way these deposits or orogenic gold systems, form and function, this idea of there being, more Upper Antinos or potentially even bigger deposits than Upper Antino on this property and associated with this system is very, very much a real possibility. So we're excited to be tackling, this scale of land or this scale of property as an opportunity. And it represents a lot of potential to build value for shareholders.
You never announced how much you paid. Is that something that's not public?
No. So for this 37,000 hectare concession piece, that was a $5 million acquisition from last fall. And then in the most recent addition here, this 36,000 hectare piece here, this is actually an application through the government. So that was required for kind of the standard per hectare fees. It's nothing significant, sub $100,000 sort of thing. And then to the south here, this package, we made an initial payment of $2.5 million to acquire this here. Puts us 100% of this. This area here is actually separate as well from the kind of Antino project in terms of the 70-30 split. Everything else was contiguous or within the area of interest of the original project, so falls under that Antino project area and forms part of that 70-30 agreement with NANA.
What's the work plan this year for if we exclude the 20,000 hectare original Antino project, what's the work plan?
So the work plan for us, we're right now focusing efforts on extending Upper Antino. So up until we acquired this concession here towards the end of November, we had drilled pretty much right up to the boundary. It seems pretty obvious looking at it here with the auger samples and things where they sit. But expanding that Upper Antino piece to the northwest is a big focus of some of this early year drilling. We're also going to be, we've already put news out on Lower Antino from some of the work we did at the end of last year. We're going to be doing more drilling there. That looks very, very promising and has been expanding consistently to the south and to the north as well. It's a big gold system. I mean, it was already obviously so from the auger sampling, but it's a different thing when you can start putting together as consistent, mineralized intervals, from surface and with a drill. So we're keen on that. The rest of the targets from the kind of original Antino concession, we really wind up putting those into an overall ranking scheme alongside the things that have come out of the historic data on some of the new concession piece. So there will be follow-up drilling on several of the kind of existing targets or the boxes with names to them. But there's going to be some really exciting kind of H1 drilling. We're anticipating getting up to these targets in the north here, kind of towards the middle or end of March for some drilling on these two targets up here. And we're, I think, particularly keen on, both of them. So this auger anomaly here is the single largest auger anomaly on the entire 1,000 square kilometer package. And like a scale comparator, I mean, it's it's much, much larger in terms of overall signature than what's here at Upper Antino. And this was never drilled historically. So we have easy access to that from both roads on the property and via the river to get a drill up there and get testing it. And then I think what's not fully understood when we put this out, we'll likely get some additional kind of exploration plan news out in the near future that covers this in more detail, is this line of samples here, of grab samples. The orientation of these is actually northwest. And so the significance of that is that each one of these, it's actually 5 separate shear zones over what is 3+ kilometers that all have these high grade grab samples coming out of them. And so these are the sort of numbers that we get from grab samples in that Upper Antino area, and what they we see the shear zones themselves at surface, and they're mapped right now as kind of 8 to 10 plus meter wide at surface shears. There's certainly potential for those to be broader at depth, as has been the case in a number of drill holes at Upper Antino, but they're that high grade shear zone hosted type mineralization. And so each one of those boxes effectively represents a separate northwest shear zone for us to test, and getting some mapping, getting the geophysics finished up there, and getting some auger sampling as well is going to help us understand, do those things come together somewhere where there's potential for there to be something even larger? Is it all part of a much bigger system that potentially trends down here into this historic anomaly? These are some of the questions that we want to answer, because there's not any data kind of in the gap in the middle, and we're working on that right now. So there's a lot to get out and do.
So with the 70,000 meters, as of now, how are you thinking around the split? What are the high level objectives with the program?
Yeah, so we maintain the notion that kind of it's still a 2-pronged approach of adding value for shareholders, and so it's continuing to advance Upper Antino. I think going prior to obtaining this part of this new concession last year, we were looking to define a box around Upper Antino and maybe start working towards a resource on that. With the addition here, we're going to test that strike extent or this northwest extension potential before we start drawing a resource box for subsequent infill drilling and moving that forward from a development standpoint. So that'll take a fair bit of meters working on that. But between Upper Antino, Lower Antino, and some of the more advanced targets, we expect to spend around kind of 40 to 50% of that drill meter budget, with the rest of those meters going into exploration targets over the course of the year.
So what would you say if at Upper Antino that what do you think you have, and where will the drilling that you will do? What's the sort of split between more infill drilling and expanding it, and where can you expand it?
So right now, I don't have the other presentation up here to dive into that a bit deeper, but in terms of the split, I mean, it's going to be exploration driven because we're focusing first on the expansion and getting a sense of the footprint before focusing on the infill drilling piece. So the actual percentage divide there won't be clear until we start getting some results back from that northwest piece. There's the auger sampling work historically that we're following up on, but I think it's reasonable to say that the geology doesn't stop at the concession boundaries very often. So we're going to be really pushing that out, but it's about 800 meters plus to kind of the northernmost auger anomaly from the historic stuff that we got with this concession. With the alluvial mining, like the historic work that's over in this area, it kind of points to there being opportunity or potential for that structure to extend much, much further. So there's opportunity for that to grow a lot. And then the question around what do we think we have, or what do we have today? We're a pre-resource company, so I tend to point to the analysts that have done quite a bit of modeling of our drill data that's available on our website or from the various press releases. The consensus winds up really falling in that kind of 3 to 6 million ounce range for Upper Antino, with grades on the order of kind of 2 to 3 grams per ton seems to be where people land, and I think we feel pretty comfortable within that within that interval as we start putting things together here. With I think a lot of opportunity for it to grow. And a reminder there too is that Upper Antino, it's been one of the highest grade gold discoveries or growing gold targets or deposits in the Guyana Shield, and it's an open pit opportunity from surface type mineralization at the moment. But we had some fantastic hits in the latter part of the year last year. 18 meters of 6 grams. 5 meters of over 10, these kinds of things at depth down to kind of 450, 500 meters. And so there is an opportunity for that, longer term underground development as well, which is an exciting potential addition.
What targets are you particularly excited for, and why?
It's a good question. There's quite a few, but we're being pretty systematic in the approach. I've been, in terms of the more advanced targets, Upper Antino has always been a shining star, but things that we just put results out on and that I'm keen on because I think the market doesn't fully understand is something like Lower Antino. The consistency of grade both within the drill holes and between drill holes has been very good there. Mineralization from surface, it's compared to Upper Antino, it's intrusion-hosted mineralization, and so it's broadly lower grade than the high-grade shear-hosted stuff at Upper Antino. The joke is that it's a gram per ton type averages. That's Aussie high grade, I think that it represents opportunity to add quite a lot of ounces to a mine scenario that involves Upper Antino as well. So I'm excited about that from a more advanced target standpoint. Of the newest things, I think I'm from a specifically grade standpoint, I'm very excited to get drills on these targets. We put some photos out with one of the news releases around the acquisition of this ground last year. These are shears that you can walk up and touch. They're very real things, and so getting a drill onto them and understanding what they look like in the subsurface is going to be very exciting drilling.
Awesome. So, could you summarize the catalyst for this year?
So I think it's safe to say that drilling is probably our number one catalyst through and through. After that, consolidating the ownership piece, I think, is a big one. Moving forward with a number of additional studies, so completing our second year of environmental baseline work, getting that report out, as well as some additional metallurgy work, optimization work at Upper Antino, where metallurgy has already been very, very good, but then getting some early met work on things like Lower Antino and Da Vinci type targets, and I think beyond that, it's really drill, and demonstrating the opportunity for there to be considerably more targets like what we see on the original Antino package.
And how are you thinking around timeline for a resource, if there is a timeline?
Yeah, so we're not allergic to resources. I think we're as I mentioned, it's been our goal to have as a maiden resource to have numbers that would include Upper Antino and then one or both of Lower Antino and Boise. So I think we're certainly on track, but those two things are still growing, and so our timing around the resource specifically certainly is extended a bit, just to really test that stuff to the northwest at Upper Antino, and then consider continuing to see how Lower Antino grows, and then we've got some follow-up work underway at Boise as well to see how that might fit into a future global resource. So we don't have a hard and fast timing on that because it's very much exploration dependent, but there's already a good portion of, in particular, the Upper Antino area, that has the density of drilling that would be needed for resource. So it's not necessarily that far away either. Once we kind of draw a box around that mineralized area, decide what we want to focus on.
But most likely not this year that you release one.
Most likely not this year. I think we're really pushing the exploration story, and we want to test as many of these targets as possible, and make it a focus with both the geophysics and the geochemical work and all of the prospecting kind of boots on the ground work to be getting out and getting drills on all of those things that have that 2 million plus ounce potential, just from those initial surface signatures. It's a big part of this. The exciting part about working in this area is it's has been so underexplored historically, and there's so much potential for mineralization. That the deposits, the things that we're looking for, they're the type of ones that show up in auger samples. They're the things that walking along, you stub your toe on them. So it's these aren't blind targets driven by geophysics. These are things that you just need to get people out there and sampling some of the ground and just doing some prospecting in creeks. Even like there's potential to find very, very big deposits in that very, very kind of first order type geology approach.
Excellent. So with that, where do you envision Founders medals in 2 years from now?
2 years. Well, I think demonstrating that there's I think a 10 plus million ounce potential on the Antino project is very much a goal for the 2 years from now timeline, and advancing considerably further along the development curve with things like Upper Antino and the more advanced targets on the main deposit. But hopefully seeing one of these other new targets or something that we haven't yet tagged start to grow into something of considerable size and become part of the collective whole for Founders and for the Antino project.